So thank you for the introduction, Peter. As you said, I presented this last year, so I assume a lot of people here are familiar with that presentation. I'm going to do a brief overview of twinBASIC for those that aren't familiar. But yeah, this is essentially happy birthday to twinBASIC. As Carl likes to do, there was an exclusive worldwide premiere of twinBASIC at last year's Access Vienna DevCon. And so this is an update on where the project has come over the past year. So with that, let's jump in. The outline, as I said, I'm going to do a brief overview of twinBASIC. We'll do a progress update, show you the twinBASIC IDE, and then demonstrations. So the big feedback from last year, the people that watched it, they said, this is really interesting, but to quote a line from the movie Office Space, what would you say you do here? So we had this great new language, but what could we actually do with it? So today we're going to fill in some of those gaps and show you some of the things that you can do with it today, and some of the potential things you're going to be able to do in the future when we get to the roadmap. And then, of course, we'll talk about licensing, and then hopefully have some time for questions. And if not, I'll be here for the feedback hour as well at the end of the day. So real quickly, twinBASIC, it's a fully compiled language that's 100% backwards compatible with VBA and VB6. So you can copy and paste your VBA code into twinBASIC, and it'll just run. If you've got Visual Basic projects, you can import the VBP file, and if you don't have any forms, it should come over 100% without any issues. If you've got forms, there's a couple things that there's still some form functionality that's not fully implemented yet, but that's all going to be done before the project leaves beta. The project is still in beta right now, so but it's come a long way, and it's a pretty stable beta at this point. So I've got on my website, I've got a post that I'm going to show on the final slide today that has a link to last year's video, which Carl graciously let us make public, and that really goes into all the new language features that are part of twinBASIC. Generics, class constructors, you can use sort of function return syntax that you have in other languages, much better Unicode support, which is especially important for this audience, both within the development environment and when making DLL calls. So, when you're dealing with strings in Unicode in VBA, you've got to kind of jump through some hoops when you're doing that. So much better Unicode support, function and method overloading, and then also short circuit Boolean logic via and also or else. A lot of the features that if you've worked in VB.NET, you'll recognize some of these features: generics, class constructors, the short circuiting logic, I believe return syntax as well. So a lot of that stuff is available in twinBASIC. And the other thing I want to really point out with this being a fully compiled language, there is no runtime dependency. Even VB6, which had a very small runtime dependency in the DLL, the twinBASIC executables do not require any kind of runtime, and that is one huge advantage over something like a .NET program where you've got several hundred megabyte runtime dependency in order to be able to run anything. Now the runtime is installed on most computers, but then you've also got to worry about versioning with the runtime and all that. So you can avoid a lot of that. You can create really tiny executables. So you can do things like if you've got VB scripts that you want to convert, it's relatively easy to take a VB script and make it an executable, and a tiny file that, and I've done that a little bit already in my own work. Okay, so here's a progress update on the project. The pure code side is, I would put it at about 99% complete. Most of the VBA libraries have been implemented or re-implemented in twinBASIC. There's still a few minor things and there are some outstanding issues. There's a GitHub page where you can follow all the open issues and bugs. But Wayne is very good about addressing those things, and the whole compiler is got a lot of test coverage, so there are very few regressions. So it just keeps improving over time, and that's only going to continue to improve now that the project has gotten to the point where you can, start taking large Visual Basic 6 projects and import them in. There's a lot of, really deep corner cases that are coming up, and so those are being ironed out now. But most of those things are addressed, I'd say, within a week or so of being reported, if it's an actual bug with the code. So I would put it at about 99% complete from the code side. And then from the form side, this is a difference from last year. So last year we were just talking about there would be forms at some point. Well, now the forms are here. They're about 80% complete in terms of implementing the existing WinForms controls. There's also custom controls, additional controls, and those custom controls are going to be, they're written in twinBASIC, and those are going to form the basis for the cross-platform support, which will be coming in the future. So one of the things that I'm really excited about in terms of the form controls is, and again, this is something that was new from last year, you can create your own custom form controls via inheritance. So you can start with a text box control, and you can inherit from that and make your own specific date text box that you would use. So anytime you want to use a date, you would use your own date control that you can create based on the text box, and then you can do some special formatting to it, so you can have a lot more consistency in your user interface and a lot more flexibility in what you're able to do. So that's going to be a really powerful feature. The other thing that is going to allow for is hopefully a robust third-party control market where you'll be able to get, because it'll be easier to create these custom form controls. I think there's going to be a big marketplace for developers to create and sell those, and so that'll save you time. You'll be able to get a lot of those things that you see in the .NET ecosystem with things like DevExpress and Telerik, where they have a lot of custom controls that they've provided. I think there's a lot of potential for that with twinBASIC. So the other thing that's new from last year, there's version control is available. So the code is stored in a binary container file right now, but Wayne implemented an export-import command line argument, and these on these slides where you see the underlines, those are URLs, and you can get a copy of the slide deck from my website, and you can click on these and go to the specific pages that have additional information about that. So this will take you to a batch file that I wrote that currently works with the VS Code extension. Probably needs to be updated to work with the new IDE directly, but I think for version control purposes, that should still continue to work pretty well. And the other thing that we're going to see in a minute that really is something that I think is going to get everybody excited, as Wayne has put together a bunch of really well-documented quick start samples and templates. And you're going to see here in a few minutes just how quickly you can get started and do things that in the past were hours and hours of research on the internet to maybe get something that might work, and then it would only run in 32-bit VBA, and then you'd be stuck because you had to do it in VB6, or you had to learn the .NET framework to be able to do something simple that you wanted to be able to show in VBA if you wanted to have 64-bit support. So those samples and templates are going to really jumpstart your development with twinBASIC. So the other big change is that there is now a custom twinBASIC development environment. So last year when I did the presentation, you had to use VS Code, and there was an extension. And over the past, it's only been a month. It's hard to believe it's only been a month, but Wayne wrote a separate development environment. VS Code was very good, and I think it would have been fine for when the focus was on the code itself. And I think it really started to show some of the shortcomings and limitations when it got into the form development and the user interface work. There just was, you didn't have as much flexibility working with VS Code. You were kind of constrained to their sandbox of capabilities and what you could do with it. So the new twinBASIC IDE is also a proof of concept of what you can do with twinBASIC itself. So it's written in twinBASIC. It does use the WebView2 runtime. So there is an additional runtime requirement for the twinBASIC IDE itself. And we'll talk about that here in a minute when I show the how you can get the development environment. But by using WebView2, Win was able to leverage the Monaco editor, which is what the Access team talked about doing for the improved query SQL editor is going to use Monaco. It's the same open source editor that provides the backend for VS Code. So the actual code writing experience is very similar in the twinBASIC IDE to what it was in VS Code. So you don't really lose anything there, but you gain a lot of flexibility in on the form side. And again, this is only it's only been available. I think the first release was in April. So the IDE, you'll see how far it's come in only 29 days. And I think I actually need, this is already out of date because I think Wayne put an update out. So I think we're on beta 28 right now. So as I said, it's a fully functional IDE. There's still quite a few rough edges, but you can do a lot of stuff with it as it sits today. And as I mentioned before, there's the form design user experience is much better than VS Code because VS Code was never really made to be a form designer. It was kind of a square peg in a round hole type of thing. So because of the improvement of the IDE over the last 30 days or so, there's a discussion on the twinBASIC GitHub page, and decision was made that over the long term, it's important for the project to be able to grow, that it has VS Code support. But in the relative short term, there's going to be a feature freeze. So you're not going to see any changes to the VS Code twinBASIC extension until at least 2023. But you're going to see so all the development effort is going to be going into the development environment. And I think you'll see in a minute. I think that's the right way to do things. Okay, so with that, let's jump right into the demonstrations. So I'm going to try and knock out a bunch of these. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about any one particular one because what I really want to do is to kind of whet your appetite and give you enough information that you can go back and watch the recordings if you've got specific questions when you're trying to do this yourself. But I want to just try and give you the tools to be able to get started and build some of these things. And then, it'll be up to you to fill in the actual functionality behind them. So to get started, we're going to install the twinBASIC development environment. And so I'm just going to switch over to another computer. Everybody can see this now. It's a copy of my website. And I'm going to jump in. So this is the post that I talked about. And what I did right at the top is I've got some information about how to install the twinBASIC development environment. So right now, the development environment releases have been coming through a specific GitHub issue. And so if you go into the GitHub issue, and you can see I'm not even signed into GitHub right now, so you don't need to have a GitHub account to be able to do this. And I'm just going to scroll down to the very bottom. And here we go. 8 hours ago, Wayne Phillips posted the latest beta, and I'm going to make him nervous by downloading it, and I'm going to use this to do our demonstrations. So let's go in, and we're going to go down to there it is here. Just going to unblock that. I don't think this is actually necessary, but Might as well get used to it now that Microsoft's going to be blocking the Mark of the Web stuff here pretty soon. So okay. All right, so here's the this is the zip folder. I just open it up here. Here's the twinBASIC executable, and I double click on it. So the first time you run it, it's going to just bring up some different options that you can use. You can go through and see, look at those, but it's fairly basic stuff. You've got the option here to, if you prefer to start in 64-bit mode, I'm going to leave that unchecked right now because the computer I'm on has a 32-bit Office, so I'm going to leave that unchecked. And you can do both things. Before I get into that first demo, the one other thing I do really want to point out, though, is that, as I said before, you've got this WebView2 Runtime dependency. And so if you download the twinBASIC development environment and you double click on the executable and nothing happens, it could be that you need to install that WebView2 Runtime. It comes pre-installed with Windows 11 and Office 365. If you've got that, then you should have received the WebView2 Runtime as part of your monthly update cycle. But if not, you might need to download that separately, and there's a link here. And this is going to actually take you directly to an executable file that's going to start downloading. So I'm going to cancel that because we don't need that. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is I want to show how we can create a tool window in the Visual Basic development environment. So we're going to go into samples, and we're going to use sample number 4, my VBE add-in, new with tool window. Okay, and here it is. I've got my screen resolution, so it's a little bit easier for you to see. But so it opens up. Here's the existing toolbox with most of the native Windows forms, controls, combo box, list boxes, text box. I'm not going to really do anything here because I want to hit a bunch of these different demos, but you can play around with this and add different things here. Wayne's already got a sample form that we can use, so we're just going to jump right in. If you want to switch back and forth between the form development environment and the code, there's a button you can do here, or you can just go back and forth using the tabs at the top. And the sources over here, this is where you're going to spend most of your time, is with these sources. So here in the tool window, I'll just kind of show this quickly. There's a message box that's going to pop up when we click on that button. There's a timer event that's just going to update the name of the active project as when we're in the development environment. And then the other thing that has to happen as part of this add-in that Wayne has already taken care of for us is registering the add-in, and by default, what it's going to do is it's going to add an add-in that's named, let's go over here to settings. It's going to pull the project name, so my tool window project, and then it's going to pull the add-in class name, my add-in. All right, and it's important that this class name here matches up with the my add-in class here, because this is the GUID that is going to tie everything together in the background within the registry. So with all these samples, Wayne does generate new GUIDs every time. So if you run this, you're going to have a different GUID, globally unique identifier. So these aren't, your GUID will be different than my GUID. And if you run multiple copies of a sample, you'll get a new GUID each time. Okay, so one thing I need to do is I just want to change the friendly name here. So this is what's going to show up in the add-in manager within VBA. I'm going to change this to my awesome tool window, and then the description, I can change that as well. And this is a tool window that is awesome. So now we're just going to save that. It's going to ask us where we want to save it. Actually, I'm going to make another folder here because we're going to be doing a few of these. So this will be the tool window project. Okay. And now, again, if depending on what version of VBA you have, if you've got 64-bit, you're going to need to switch that to 64. But I've got 32-bit VBA on this one. And down here in the debug console, you can see it created an output file, and it registered the type library, DLL register server, returned OK. So you just want to double check in your debug console and make sure that that is working OK, that it returned that it was successful. So we'll just create a brand new blank database. And then we're going to switch in here and look at that. Oh, it's an MZ Tools update. Okay, so here it is already, right? So here's the My Tool window. You can drag this around. You can put that in here with the rest of your tool windows. Click OK, and it shows Hello World from TB. So as you can see, that was really about 2 minutes worth of work, maybe 5 or 6 minutes of explanation. And we've got a tool window, and you can see up here, you go into the add-in manager. You can toggle the tool window visibility. So this is something I didn't point out in the sample, but there's code in there that adds this to the add-in menu, and you can see you can just go in there and toggle that on and off. When you go into the add-in manager, we can see that's where we renamed it, My Awesome Tool window. We've got the description down here, and then the startup behavior. It's loaded or unloaded, loaded on startup. Yeah, so there we go. That's fast and furious, but that was in about 10 minutes or so. And like I said, most of that was just time that we were spending that I was kind of explaining as I was going through those steps. So let's jump into something else. Like I said, fast and furious, we want to hit a bunch of different samples here. So we're going to come up and we're going to create a new project. And this one is going to be a COM add-in. Open that up. So one of the interesting things that this does, and Adam Waller has a version control open source project that he has been maintaining and leading development on. And they recently used twinBASIC to be able to integrate their add-in into the VBA, into the access ribbon. And so this is, I'm not even really going to make any changes here. You can go through and you can look at some of this as when you get a chance to later. There's a bunch of message boxes that are commented out that coincide with the various events that happen when the add-in gets loaded. So you can see, you can uncomment all these and see the flow, see what gets called when. And then down here we have the custom ribbon XML that's used to add our icon, our twinBASIC test. And so we're going to see what that looks like here in a minute. And then we've got an onAction property in the ribbon is going to call this public routine on hello world clicked. And then we've also got this function down here to load a custom button image. And I believe that button image is over here in resources, and you can see this is what the button is going to look like. So again, let's just jump right in. We're going to do Windows 32. We're not going to make any changes to the project name or anything like that. It's just going to be mycom add-in. Save that here. Okay, so it's saved to disk. Now let's build it again. And okay, so I might be on. All right, I've got an older version of Office on this computer, so rather than spend a lot of time going down a rabbit hole and trying to figure out what that is, those are the steps. If I have a minute after I do the other demos I want to get to, then I've got another development environment that I can switch to and show you what that looks like. But I don't want to burn a lot of time trying to track that down right now. So what I think I might do, though, is switch to that other environment just so that I don't run the risk of having that same issue with my next demonstration. Okay. This is a different development environment here. And I'm not going to re-download twinBASIC again. Let's see if we can do that com add-in real quickly, just so you can see what that looks like. I already did the explanation, so I'm just going to jump right into the build. You have to save it first. Doesn't really matter what I call it. Okay, that time it succeeded. Create a blank database. Okay, and there we go. twinBASIC test shows up there. Now the other interesting thing, so it says, via Microsoft Access. When we come in here, when it got registered, it actually registers as both an Access add-in and an Excel add-in. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to open up Excel. And look at that. It's in Excel as well. So obviously you can go in, you can comment whichever lines out that you don't need. If you want to do an Access specific add-in, if you want to do an Excel specific add-in, or if you have an add-in that you want to be available in both locations, you can do that. And I assume you could probably do the same with some of the other Office applications. But again, this just gives you an idea of the quick start, that the power that's available there. So let me see if I can do one last demonstration. I'm going to do another. So this one is one that I'm kind of excited about. It's pretty early on, and there's this is going to take some time, I think, to really dig into the full power that's available here. But we're going to create an Activex control. So this is going to allow us to create a custom control that we can put on an Access form. Open that up. Okay, so this is similar to the control that we saw before in terms of the layout. Again, you can switch back and forth between the code window. One of the things that's interesting here that I want to point out is that here you can expose custom properties within the Activex container by making them public. And persisting their state in the user control, read properties, write properties events. So I'm just going to kind of scroll through here quickly so that you can see what these things look like. It's the name of the property is Wayne's Custom Property. And you'll see this when we, the default value here is default property value. We're just going to go ahead and save and build this project. Add a new name. Again, come down here and check to make sure that it's in the that it succeeded, and the type library registered. So I don't think I need to restart access, but I could be wrong about that. So let's just jump into a form design. And we're going to come up here and we're going to go to Activex Controls. And then we're going to scroll down, and part of the reason I wanted to do this on a different environment was because I've already done this a few times, so we've got a few different copies of it. And this is something, so I've got a couple blog posts that go into more detail that show you step-by-step how to do this. And in there, I show you what you can change, the names you can change so that these are unique. And then there's, anyway, so there's those details are available. Okay, so this is an Activex control. And if we come over here we see Wayne's custom property. Right now, this is a known limitation, this green box. Actually, when I click on this, I believe it's going to pop up and you can see it. So right now, Wayne's custom property, and it's got a default property value here. If we go into the form view, you can see default property value, and we can come in here, go back to design view, set that to something else. And, oh, I know what I need to do. I believe I need to move off to something else in order for that to save. And I'm guessing that's probably an ActiveX issue and not something that's twinBASIC specific, because twinBASIC's not doing anything at this point. But there we go. DevCon 2022. Okay. Last thing I'll show real quickly is I'm gonna show you what you can do. Here we go. The import from VBP. So if you are a Visual Basic 6 developer, if you've got any Visual Basic 6 projects lying around, I'm not a VB6 developer, but I actually had a project that I wrote in VB6 that, because VB6 doesn't work in 64-bit environments, my clients had to continue using 32-bit Office to be able to run it. So this was nice because instead of having to convert it over into .NET, I can just go in and import from here. Let me grab the and everything. If you don't use this file search utility, I highly recommend it. Okay, so what I wanted to show you is this this import log. You can see it brought stuff in. It successfully imported everything. If you've got a project that has a lot of forms in it, then some of those forms probably aren't going to come over entirely yet. Some of them may. I don't have any Visual Basic 6 projects with forms in them, so I don't know what this looks like. But you'll get this import log, and so then you can go in and you can see where there may have been problems doing the import. Okay, so there we go. trying to close this without closing the presenting. Okay, so back to the slideshow. So we created a VBE add-in with tool window, and again, I've got an article about how to do that with more details. Created a COM add-in with the ribbon button. Created a custom Activex form control, and then we imported a Visual Basic VB6 project. We did all of that. So we did 4 different things: live demos, live code, which I was more than a little nervous about doing, but we got through it and did it in maybe 20-25 minutes. So take some time. As I said, the samples are all very well commented. It may not look like a lot of code there, but that's like dozens of hours of frustration that Wayne has just gotten rid of for you. So really powerful stuff. Really, it allows you to focus on developing the actual interesting functionality. And so hopefully you can see just the kind of power that's available by doing that. All right, so here's the roadmap, which was just updated within the last 24 hours or so. I'm just going to hit the highlights. I've got a link on my website that takes you to the actual roadmap, because there's more than just what I'm going to show here. But Q2 of 2022, there's going to be WebView2 control. So between the Activex control and WebView2, you might be able to get WebView in access faster by using twinBASIC than waiting for whatever is going to happen out of Redmond and the official Microsoft release of their web control. There's also going to be a built-in high-performance web server, and Wayne's going to work on finishing the Activex control support and also support the use of third-party Activex controls on twinBASIC forms. In Q3, you're going to allow for optimized builds and also implement inheritance, which is, if you're into object-oriented programming, you can do. You've got interfaces, so you've got composition, but not necessarily inheritance. So that's something that's going to be available looking into Q3 of this year. In Q4, he's looking to include VB Watchdog, which is going to be built in. Anybody that's used VB Watchdog, tremendous product. You can get full access to the call stack. When you're doing error logging, it's invaluable. Saves a ton of boilerplate error handling code. And he's also going to be doing the multi-threading. So multi-threading is actually already built into the compiler. It hasn't been built into the language, and that's a tricky thing. To handling multiple threads is just a hard thing to do from the developer perspective. So there's still some discussion about what the best way is to handle that with the syntax. And then going into the beginning of next year, the edit and continue. So one of the most underrated features of the VBA language, in my opinion, is the ability to set a breakpoint and go in and when there's an error in the code, to actually edit the code live and then continue executing it. Is really, really powerful. I think that really is one of the things that helps with the relatively low learning curve for VBA, and so that's going to be a really nice feature. And then also full cross-platform support. So Q4 is actually going to introduce some cross-platform support for Mac and Linux, and then in first quarter of next year, Wayne is looking at cross-platform support for both Android and also the ARM processor, Linux and Mac. So ARM would be the reduced instruction set processors that are lower power. So a lot of exciting possibilities going forward, especially when it comes to cross-platform support and that high-performance web server. There's just a lot that could come from that. Now, here's, I'm sure people are going to have questions. This is a commercial product, but there is a very capable community edition that is free. It allows you to create 32 and 64-bit executables and DLLs. It does have a splash screen for if you compile it into 64-bit, and it is also going to be Windows only and unoptimized compilation. So really, other than the splash screen for 64-bit, everything that I demonstrated today was done. You can do with the community edition of the product. The professional version gets rid of the splash screen on 64-bit EXEs, and then it also is going to allow for optimized compilation. And then with the Ultimate Edition, you get private product support, and then you also get the cross-platform support. And I've worked a little bit with the B4X project, B4 Android, and that has a basic B4A basic for Android, B4J basic for Java, and it has a basic like syntax that gets translated into Java, I believe is how that works, and that's pretty nice. But to be able to do sort of native basic development on Android, that would be really another really interesting, open up a lot of interesting possibilities. So the pricing up here does reflect current 35% pre-order discount. It is a subscription based. So I've got the prices up here in euros, British pounds, US dollars, what they currently are. And what this discount is basically if you order it during the beta phase, it's to encourage early adopters, and then you have that discount then forever. You lock that in. If you're going to develop with twinBASIC for the next 10 years, you would pay this rate, even if the rest of the rate goes up for newer users later down the road. All editions, including the community edition, are commercial use, royalty-free licenses. So you don't have to worry about licensing individual users or anything like that. So yeah. That's it. Links and resources are at my website. It's the top post on the page if you just go to nolongerset.com. And if you're watching the video recording, you can get there by using the full URL, nolongerset.com/DevCon-2022. All right, and if there's any questions.
Okay, we have indeed some questions. Is checking 64-bit necessary if applicable? Will it install and then error out if not?
So I think it really, I assume, and let me know if this doesn't answer the question, but if you're building some kind of a COM add-in that's going to be running in Office, then it needs to match whatever the bitness is of the Office install. And if it doesn't match that bitness, then Office won't even see it. It won't even know to look for it. So, if you're deploying this to end users, you would probably need to include both a 32 and a 64-bit version, unless you knew what version that they were running on their end.
Okay. Then Arvo asked the question: is it possible to create VBA IDE add-ins that call procedures from current Access projects?
Yeah, so when the COM add-in loads up, you can grab a copy of the Access application object, and then from there you can do like a run by name and run individual public procedures from there. So yes, I think the short answer is that is possible to do that. Obviously you'd have to be a little bit careful about that, because if you're relying on these add-ins are going to run for every Access application. So not every Access application is going to have the specific function that it is that you want to call. So, you would be doing a runtime call by name type thing. So that it's possible. You just have to be a little bit careful.
Okay. One final comment from Ben. Fun fact, it's already possible to write multi-threading using Win32 API in twinBASIC right now. In VB6, that would not work well and require additional hacks but TB makes it possible. So thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Peter.
In case you don't see it, you get lots of hands.
I like taking credit for Wayne's work.